Welcome to The Favorites, the podcast presented by Bet365. We are part of the Volume Podcast Network. I am Chad Millman of the Action Network. I'm live from my Tommy John home studio, and I'm joined, as always, by my co-host, my companion, my compadre, my BFF professional bettor, Simon Hunter. Hello, Simon.
Chad, how we doing?
We are so good right now because there has been a lot of activity around the Chicago Bears during the trade season, the free agency season. I feel like the Bears have put themselves in a position to be very competitive. We're going to dig in on that. Plus, whatever team you root for and whatever they've been doing, I don't know. They don't really tend to make any noise during the offseason or be as strategic as a team like the Bears. So we can dig in on that and everything else that's happening in the NFL with he may be one of our top 5 favorite colleagues at the Action Network, at least top 10. He's the co-host of both the Action Network podcast and the Fantasy Flex. He joins us for Convince Me on Sundays during the NFL season. He has long been a brother, a nemesis, a friend, all those things wrapped into one because he is a riddle. You can hear him talking all things NFL betting, fantasy, free agency, draft, all year round. A perennial Fantasy Pros top 10 NFL player projectionist. His name, one of the Action Network OGs, Chris Raybon.
Thank you, Chad. That was quite the intro. What's up?
I was
Simon?
feeling it.
Glad to be back with you guys. I don't know how to follow up that Chad intro, so I'm just gonna shut up.
You know what you're gonna do? You're gonna come on. You're gonna be smart. You're gonna give us some informed takes. You're gonna make me feel better about what the Bears are doing. You might help me make some futures bets. We're gonna be great today. That's what today is about.
Let's do it.
As a reminder, the Favorites podcast is presented by Bet365. And now, new Bet365 customers get $150 in bonus bets when you bet $5. Sign up using promo code FAVORITES. Deposit $10. Place a bet for $5 to get $150 in bonus bets. Those bonus bets can be used on spreads, totals, player props, futures, and more. Whatever the moment, it's never ordinary at Bet365. Must be 21 or older and present in Arizona, Colorado, Indiana, Iowa, Louisiana, North Carolina, New Jersey, Ohio, Pennsylvania, Virginia, or 18 and older in Kentucky. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER or 1-800-BETS-OFF in Iowa. Terms, conditions, restrictions apply. Before we get into NFL trades, NFL free agency, another reminder, officially RSVP for our free Favorites Live Show event in Chicago, my hometown. This will be for the Elite 8 March Madness games on Saturday, March 29th at Joe's on Weed, famously known as Joe's on Weed. Free event, free drinks, free live show with college basketball betting experts Stuckey and Three Man Weave. Obviously, Simon and I will be there as well. RSVP to reserve your spot by clicking the link in the episode's description, or you can just Google the Favorites Live Event Chicago. Be sure to RSVP. Simon, I know that my dad is so excited to come to this event. He's jealous that your family's been coming to our Favorites events for years because they've been in New Jersey and Philadelphia and easy to get to. My dad's freaking out. He can't wait to get there.
Honestly, can't wait either, Chad. I'll be honest. Like you probably have the same feeling I do. Is that you go through this winter mode and not that you're depressed, but you need sunshine and warmth. And that first day of like semi-spring, I mean, I know you had up in Connecticut when it's like 60, 70 degrees out.
Yes.
You get that air. To me, that and the beginning of March Madness is like the best time of year. Like, as someone that lives in the Northeast, so the fact that we're going to Chicago when the weather's getting right and we're gonna be partying with fans of the show and just being around other gamblers and watching March Madness, it's the best. So yeah, I'm really looking forward to it.
I am too. Obviously, I love Chicago. It truly is like just brings such joy to my heart to be in my hometown. So I'm excited to get there. One of my buddies listened to Tuesday's show and he loves these. His name is Andy, and he loves these story episodes that we do. He was so in love with Matt Mitchell. He was so in love with Matt Mitchell's questions and his honesty and the story about how Matt proposed to his wife at a casino. He texted me, he's like, I am the president of the Matt Mitchell fan club. I cannot wait to meet him at the event. So even Matt Mitchell's going to get some love, and he'll be there in his, Masters green blazer. All right, let's get into it. I feel like we're making Raybon jealous. He might want to come. Uh, Fellas, look, it has been crazy. DK Metcalf going to the Steelers, Justin Fields going to the Jets, Sam Darnold going to Seattle, Geno Smith going to the Raiders, Daniel Jones going to the Colts. You know, Stafford is staying in LA. Devontae Adams is going to LA. The Eagles have been offloading the Josh Allen extension. All of this has been happening, right? Raybon, let me start with you. The top two free agent signings / trades people are not talking enough about, and why?
I think you got to start with the team that lost the Super Bowl to Kansas City Chiefs, signing Jalen Moore to play presumably their left tackle position. We saw all the issues that they had going up against that Eagles pass rush, and then they end up losing Joe Thuney. They trade him, so they kind of made a bet, on their other two interior linemen, and Moore, who played really well. Like last year, there was really no drop off. Last couple of years, when he subbed in for Trent Williams in San Francisco. So if he can keep that up, that would solve just a major issue for the Kansas City Chiefs. That was probably the difference between them, being in position, at least keeping it a game in that three-peat and not. And then kind of a related situation, I would say, like another one is Laramie Tunsil getting traded to the Washington Commanders. As good as Jaden Daniels can move around, they're still in the division with the Eagles, but the Eagles lost some guys on their defensive line. So that kind of tilts the power a little bit too. So I thought those two moves, offensive line, no sexy wide receivers, quarterbacks, we're going straight to the offensive line.
It's interesting. Obviously, Simon, you and I talk about offensive line and defensive line being so powerful when it comes to looking at these teams, handicapping these teams. What did you see, Raybon, in Moore? You say there was no drop off from Trent Williams. It's not like the Niners went 5 deep at running back this year, right? It seemed like every single week one of their guys was getting hurt. And I think who was the guy? Isaac Gutierrez? Was it the kid from
Orlando,
UCLA? Yeah. Like even he was like in that running scheme doing amazingly well. What was so good about Moore that makes you feel like there wasn't a drop off? What did you see? What were the numbers?
So the way I'll put it is, let's think of a team that has a really good offensive line, the Philadelphia Eagles. We know how good they can run, right? But and Simon could attest to this, when they brought in Johnson, like the other Johnson for a couple of games at tackle, he was not playing well at all. Whereas when you looked at Moore, like I was kind of knocking down San Francisco's run game each and every week. I was upping their pressure rate, and it really just didn't happen over the past 2 seasons. He's played about 500 total snaps, and that's really the question mark. But only 2 sacks allowed for Moore. Only 5 in his entire career on about 1,000 total snaps. And the big thing is he's a swing tackle, but mostly left tackle. So I think that's really important. That left tackle spot, which is so crucial for the Chiefs. And then because you lost Thuney, now you don't even have that, or you traded him, you don't have that option. So they're making a big bet on Moore. His PFF pass block grade has gone up each of the last 3 seasons. He was a 73.1 last year, which is very, very good. And I just think that if he plays like he played, especially last year in kind of abbreviated snaps, little under 300 snaps, I just think that's a huge upgrade for the Chiefs, because they had that dominant interior line with Joe Thuney, Jones and Humphrey, and Trey Smith and Humphrey, and they really, it didn't show through. Like you had your running game was really struggling down the stretch, especially Pacheco, and against good pass rushes, Mahomes was still getting sacked and being forced into bad decisions. So it's obvious that tackle spot is huge for the Chiefs. So they kind of made a bet on that. The money's getting a little bit tighter, even though the cap has risen just because of what they're paying to some of their stars. So I just think that's going to be such a big move, and if it doesn't go right, they'll probably be in trouble.
Simon, it's an annual tradition. People will forget about the Chiefs. People will not want to bet on the Chiefs. People will overlook the Chiefs, even though the Chiefs are 7-1 right now after the Eagles to win the Super Bowl, plus 700, along with the Ravens, just ahead of the Bills. Do you agree with this idea from Raybon?
Yeah, I like in the sense that I think just like most years, we'll be able to get great value on the Chiefs when we bet them in October to win the Super Bowl. That this O-line is going to need some time to get it together. They'll drop 1 or 2 games, maybe lose a game to the Raiders in week 2. Everyone jumps off ship. Me and you, Chad, always the wiser. We'll just patiently wait and get them at 12-1, 13-1. That's usually how it goes. But yeah, for me, I love the offseason, these moves, because it is the classic one man's trash is another man's treasure. And a lot of these moves are just trash to trash, right? It's like, are the Jets really get better by getting Justin Fields? No, but those fans have been through hell. They're excited about it because they're going from an old 40-year-old man to a young, great athlete in his 20s. And they're hoping that maybe they can find a spark with Justin Fields in this team. So it's really fun this time of year. And for me, it's all about the betting angle, right, Chad? And that's what this show is about. And, a week ago I gave out, I love the Rams 28-1. They go out, get Devontae Adams. 49ers have just basically getting all the guys off the ship. They're just cutting all the old guys, trying to get young. The Rams are now 20-1 for Super Bowl odds. So that's a big movement based off what the 49ers have done and what the Rams themselves have done. So to me, that's great because I just love getting good value. And it's like, okay, we got a great number on the Rams, and I think it's going to keep dropping because I don't know who's going to be betting the 49ers other than professional bettors, right? The public, to me, is going to be totally off this 49ers team just because I think anyone rationally would think they'd miss their window, right? They're getting rid of their all-pro fullback. They're getting rid of Debo, which you can say Debo's kind of missed it. That's fair, but he's still an important cog to their offense, right? Now it is all on Ayuk and a second-year player and a wide receiver. So it's really interesting what's happening with these two teams and the Rams and 49ers because all you're hearing right now with the 49ers is that they're going to have to pay Purdy, and they're fighting behind closed doors because Purdy's saying, I think I'm elite. And they're saying, well, the talent around you is elite. We don't think you are, so we're not going to pay you $50 million. So is that a lot of drama, Chad, that's going to carry into the season? Because I know you were in on the 49ers. I'm not, right? I like the Rams side of it. So I think those are two very, very unique teams where everything feels like it's been negative this offseason for the 49ers, where things have been really positive for this Rams team. And then, to go to your Bears team, I know you were just wanting to talk about it. I can't get over it. Like the fact that they addressed the interior line in such a great way, right? Getting the best center that was available, addressing left guard and right guard. We talked about last year. I told you I think interior now in the offensive line is more important than the exterior. I really think there's been a switch in the NFL where it's more important to have a really good left guard and right guard than it is a left tackle and right tackle. Even more so with an offense like you, Chad, where Caleb, he can mess up when there's rush up the middle. If he gets pushed to the outside, that's where we've seen the magic with Caleb Williams. Like his movement on the outside, once he gets out of the pocket, is brilliant. It's inside the pocket that's been a struggle for him, right? When he gets that pressure up the middle and he gets happy feet, that's been a problem. Ben Johnson came in day one and went to your GM and told him, that's what I want to do. So I love it because this year has been different than last year. Last year was all about Derrick Henry, Saquon, right? These sexy running backs, trying to add them to a team that's missing one piece, where this year it really feels like it's been not just boring, but more about address the interior offensive line, address the D-line because of what the Eagles did in the Super Bowl, where we have a little bit of mix sprinkled in of DK and, Adams, these number one receiver switching teams. But to me, this offseason has really been about addressing these teams' D-lines and offensive line. So I'm loving every move the Bears team has made so far.
Yeah, look, I'm glad you brought it up. I wasn't going to open with it.
Yeah, I bet you are.
I didn't want to be the homer.
Yeah, but you
Uh,
can't deny it. It's incredible.
Look, I love that Raybon's two top plays were offensive tackles. I
Yeah.
love that one of your key points is talking interior line. I agree with you, and I don't just agree with you because of what we saw with Caleb Williams. Most there obviously teams are trying to play their young quarterbacks as quickly as possible. The biggest challenge for young quarterbacks is when they get pressure up the middle, when they have pressure in their face and they have to run to the edge, but they might not have time because it's so overwhelming to have three guys coming at you from the middle of the defensive line who are so much faster than you are used to when you've been playing in college. You can't get to the edge, so you just keep running backwards, right? We saw this with Caleb Williams. Everything you just said is true. Before we get to the Bears, my quibble with what you're saying about the Niners is Debo is gone. Fine. He was trending down. Brandon Ayuk is back. He was the primary target for Brock Purdy, anyways. So it's a wash, right? You might lose something, because you're losing a high profile fullback who was an important part of your scheme, but you're going to get back Christian McCaffrey. So you're getting back to your most important playmakers, and you're still going to have Kittle at tight end. So I don't worry so much about the Niners. In fact, I might buy into the Niners again if their odds drop because I think you might still be getting value on there. Now for the Bears. The number one play for me, Drew Dahlman, signing the center from the Falcons. Simon, how many times over the past 2 years, whether it was Arthur Smith or the new scheme that the Falcons were running, did we talk about Drew Dahlman and Chris Lindstrom, the right guard for the Falcons? They were so dominant. When you look at Raybon talks about their PFF grades, right? The PFF grades, Lindstrom and Dahlman were so highly rated by PFF over the past couple seasons because of their ability to control the line of scrimmage and create a scheme that allows the Falcons to be so effective in the running game. I can't believe the Bears now have Joe Thuney and Drew Dahlman as part of their interior line. Jonah Jackson, I think the jury's out. Is he going to be a Pro Bowl player? Is he going to be a guy who's sort of off the roster last year, essentially for the Rams? I don't know. But Drew Dahlman and Joe Thuney, that's, I mean, wow. And so we backed up a truck for Grady Jarrett. We got a grown ass man now playing in the middle of the defensive line. Like, holy tamale.
Yeah,
Raybon,
it's
go
I
ahead.
was
Go
just,
ahead,
oh,
Sam.
I was just gonna piggyback off what you're saying is that it's year one of what you expect to be 2 to 3 years of the right direction, right? Like this is just the beginning. We don't want to get too far ahead of our skis like Nick Wright and pick the Bears to go to the Super Bowl this season, but it's you can't deny it, right? These are the exact moves you wanted to see, right? You didn't want to see them go get another wide receiver. You didn't want to see them go out and sign, as much as I love Milton Williams, his contract's atrocious. Like no one should be paying Milton Williams the amount of money he just received from the Patriots. Like that's the type of move that you guys could have made and been like, okay, same old Bears, just trying to make a splash. But no, it's all logical, smart, and I'm sure Chris feels the same way. Where it's like, we like to shit on you and your Bears, Chad. It's hard to shit on them this offseason where they've really nailed it at this point.
Yeah, it's all about Caleb Williams now. Like, last year there was a lot of optimism too, but the team, to your point, Simon, it was just not quite built the right way. It was too many flashy, like fantasy video game type moves where, the wide receiving core looked great, but you had a rookie quarterback, not great coaches. So it really comes down to Caleb because I think we know what Ben Johnson is offensively. Now he could maybe he's one of those coaches that when he, gets more responsibilities, he might struggle in certain aspects, but I think ultimately Caleb Williams at times was really bad last year, and at other times he was really good. So this year he's gonna have no excuse with what they put around him offensively in terms of the coaching staff and the offensive line.
Well, look, you could have looked at it a couple different ways. The Bears last year decided we can't do all of it at once. So we went after the talent that we thought was available. They re-signed DJ Moore. He came on at certain points at the end of the year, started to get more comfortable. They went after Keenan Allen. He probably won't be with the team this year. They drafted Roma Dunze, right? They went after sort of the best players that were available at the time didn't overspend on the offensive line. They kept Eberflus. Everybody thought that was a mistake. But maybe I don't think they were they were playing 3D chess here and thinking, okay, we're going to keep Eberflus because he's only going to last one more year, and then we're going to get Ben Johnson. You don't want to waste a year of Caleb Williams. They did the best they could. In the second year, they're being very focused on the offensive line. Before we came on the air, we were joking about like inept teams. The Cowboys have had an inept, unremarkable, questionable, head scratching offseason where for the umpteenth year in a row, they are not spending. They're not willing to sign players. Rico Dowdle just signed a new deal with another team, 1 year, $3 million. He's going to be better than any running back the Cowboys are putting money on, and they could have had him for nothing, right? The Bears have historically been a team that would not go all in on coaches. They went all in on Ben Johnson. They have gone all in on Grady Jarrett. They have gone all in on Drew Dalman. You can't say the Bears are not spending this year. I'm as shocked as anybody. I think it's amazing. Just amazing. But this will not be the year, Simon. Will not be the year like 2 years ago where I overinvest in the Chicago Bears like we did with Justin Fields. Let's talk about Fields for a second. To me, the NFL is kind of about one thing right now. As dynamic as a player can be at the quarterback position, if he can't convert the easy throws on third down, if you can't rely on the quarterback to execute in the 4 or 5 times a game when he has to make the throw, you can't have a winning team. If we talk about free agent signings and trades, people are talking too much about but won't matter. Justin Fields to the Jets, for me, is right at the top of the list. Simon, agree or disagree? You have an opposing view. Do you have another one to add to this list?
I'll disagree in the sense that I just believe in quarterbacks and taking the upside. And it doesn't matter what they've done other places. We've learned now over the years that the hope is you find the Baker, Sam Darnold type of year, right? You're always going to believe that if I have the right coaching, put the right pieces around these guys, that we can make this work, right? Because there's a reason that Justin Fields was a top pick, right? His athleticism is off the charts. It's just what you talked about. His check down passes, like when he's getting a little pressure in his face, he can't complete a 4-yard pass. That's a major issue. Like you're saying, there's a reason he's not a star in the league. It's basically that. It's pretty simple. It comes down to it. That's really the issue with him. And when I'm breaking this down and looking at his film and why the Jets are making this move, they have a vision for it. They have a vision for what they're going to do. Now, I'm on the other side where I think they might be one of the worst teams in all of football, this Jets team. So the fact they're making this move, giving him a 2-year deal, maybe in their mind, they're just like, well, good. We'll get a high draft pick next year and go get our quarterback for real. And then we'll just have him next year on the 1-year deal, and he can be a nice little bridge gap quarterback. Because I'm in the same camp as you, Chad, where it's like when you look at their division right now, they're in 4th, and it feels like by a lot, right? They're way behind Josh Allen, Tua, and now the hope is Drake May takes that next step. So, yeah, for me and you, I feel like it's going to be a pretty easy bet taking their under this Jets team. And just everything they've done this offseason is just like, could it happen? Right? We saw it happen last year with the Vikings. Sure, anything can happen in football. Sam Darnold could have a career year. Justin Fields could come out, have a career year. I bet you he doesn't, and I'm willing to put money on it. So it's pretty interesting. That was their big move, and the Jets fans are happy, but they're just like Cowboys fans, man. They've been through it. Like the Cowboys, like you just started like talking about how bad they've been and how they haven't really done anything in this offseason. It's like that stat. Washington made it last year. Washington made it to the conference championship game. The Cowboys are the only team in the NFC that have not been in the conference championship game in like 30 years. That doesn't even sound real. If you're a fan of football or a fan of the Cowboys, just how dominant they were in the 90s. So, yeah, I get why their fans are pissed off. And I'm honestly shocked that it's not talked about more in media right now about how the Cowboys are just everything they're doing is wrong, right? Not signing Micah Parsons before all these other DNs just got paid big money. Everything they do is just wrong. So, yeah, I'm right there with you where it's like, the Justin Fields thing doesn't move the needle for me. But I get why they did it because it's like, what else are you going to do? That's the problem with this league is there's only 32 quarterbacks, and We joke all the time, Chad. You don't want that bottom 10 quarterbacks. They're all the same. They're all interchangeable. So, yeah, really, really tough spot for the Jets, but there is some upside in the play. So I get where they're doing it.
Raybon, you're shaking your head affirmatively, I should note, when Simon is saying the Jets may be one of the worst teams.
Yeah, I think, and this extends to really, I would say, if you're asking just more generally, what is the signing or signings that people are talking too much about that's not going to mean anything? I think it's just all of this veteran quarterback musical chairs. I think the most important quarterback went to the most important place he could be, and that was Matthew Stafford staying with the Rams, because we already saw that he can win a Super Bowl at this stage in his career with this general iteration of the Rams. You know, that's what we've seen. So everyone else, you know, Raiders getting Geno Smith, I'm gonna fade them. The Seahawks getting Sam Darnold, gonna fade them. Jets getting Justin Fields, gonna fade them. Who else I'm leaving out? You know, like wherever Aaron Rodgers goes.
Colts getting Daniel Jones.
Yeah, I mean, they need Daniel Jones is, like, statistically anyway, it's hilarious. He was just so much better of a thrower of the football than Anthony Richardson last year that it's comical. But yeah, just another example of, like, this year, Simon kind of alluded to it earlier. You know, usually, like, quarterback is the most important position, you know, in terms of betting and the point spread and all that. But it seemed like last year the most important moves were running backs. We saw the Ravens and you know, competing for a title with Henry, and then of course Saquon, and the Eagles end up winning it. And this year, it's like all these quarterback musical chairs, and nothing really moves the needle. Like, even wherever Aaron Rodgers goes, to me, doesn't really move the needle, because all the teams that are the true contenders, and our guy Evan Abrams talks about this all the time. Like, if you kind of look, it's about 12-1. It's where the cutoff is. If you can't get to that 12-1 spot in terms of Super Bowl odds by the time the season starts, you're pretty much out of the running. And Burrow is probably the quarterback that didn't make it last year that's in the running. But Josh Allen, Patrick Mahomes, we know the guys. Hurts, Lamar. Like, these teams, the teams that are going to contend have a quarterback. The Rams are going to be there, I think. And all these other guys just doesn't mean much. And I don't think this rookie class is particularly strong either. So everyone wants to talk about quarterbacks, and even Metcalf to the Steelers, because that's kind of quarterback adjacent. Where, great, it's like they always are going to have a high floor, and maybe that raises their ceiling a little bit. But Seahawks won 10 games with good receivers last year and a mediocre quarterback, and couldn't even make the playoffs. And the Steelers are in a competitive division as well. So I just think all these quarterback moves are getting talked about a little too much, and I don't really think they're going to change who we see in that Final Four.
Could not agree more. The Steelers are interesting, though, because, like, if it's not going to be Aaron Rodgers, and Raybon, you've been writing for 7 years that Aaron Rodgers was on the downside of his career and using really thoughtful stats and analysis to back it up. We saw a lot of it last year. I think a lot of people are going to be enamored with a 3-4 game stretch where all of a sudden he looked healthy. Maybe he was getting a little bit better protection, with the 4 or 5 times they saw him make the exact throw that only Aaron Rodgers can make. And all of a sudden he's going to pair with Mike Tomlin and hit DK Metcalf down the field. And that's going to be the difference. I'm not seeing it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Just not a thing. It's not a thing. It's not a thing. Simon, it's not a thing.
I like the move, though, for them. And, we'll give some flowers to our guy, Peter King, where I told you 2 months ago, Peter King said that he thought Rodgers was going to go to the Steelers. And it's like, clearly the Steelers have been putting out there they like him that long ago. For Peter King, who doesn't say much in the media, to come out and say that. So, that was a big deal to me. I think it's another spot of, they're not going to win a Super Bowl because of it. But I feel like Chris just nailed it. Like, we're not betting the under on their win total this year. Like, that's the exact quarterback they get in there to somehow get to 9 or 10 wins. Like, this is the perfect match for them. And if he doesn't go there, It sucks for them because they're probably still going to get the 7 wins somehow. Doesn't matter who the quarterback's going to be, even if it's, Mason Rudolph, whoever they bring in there. But,
he just signed a deal with them as we speak.
It's the Tomlin magic, man. It's just crazy how he can just take trash and make it work. It's the same reason Russell Wilson is radioactive right now. No one signed him, right? No one actually believes in him. No one understands how that man won so many games with that Steelers team last year. It's all part of that Steelers magic. So, going back to these different teams and how they run their organization, there's just some teams, Chad, they're just dumb and they overthink it. I mean, the biggest one that jumped out to me has to be the Giants, right? This offseason, the Giants just signed Slayton, a wide receiver 2, to $38 million. 3 years, $38 million. That's the same amount they passed on paying Saquon the year before. So it's like none of these things make sense when you really break it down to its core, because these teams just overthink stuff. And like we talk all the time, the salary cap is just going to keep going up. So people will be like, did you see how much so-and-so got paid? Yeah, it looks stupid on paper, but it's like the salary cap just keeps going up. That's why, as an Eagles fan, I think this is the first offseason of my life that we are the team that is just losing people left and right while not bringing anybody in. And honestly, it's the greatest feeling in the world. It's like, holy shit, we are one of the best drafting teams in football that we're so good, all we can do is sign our own guys. And we have to let other guys walk, where even last year, our 2 Super Bowl winning moves were Zach Braun and Saquon Barkley, 2 free agent signings at this time of year. So to me, that's for a lot of teams out there where, like, we poo-poo free agent signings. Shit does matter. If you have the right GM and making the right moves, these are the type of things that can set you up for Super Bowl. But on the flip side, you can set your team back 4 or 5 years in a really bad free agency move where you're spending all this money. Like Tennessee last year. Think of Tennessee. They spent all that money, Chad, just to be the number 1 pick. It's just, that's what's so brutal about this time of year. It's like, I don't want to shit on everyone's team, but there are certain teams you look at side out, you're just like, man, they're going to be the exact same spot 4 or 5 years, cutting these guys on these big contracts, and it's just bad money spending. So I don't know how you view it, but I'm of that mentality of, there's some teams that are nailing it, like the Bears, and there's other teams you're just like, this team is going to be spinning their tires for another 3-4 years, like New Orleans Saints and a couple other teams.
It's clear. You and I talked about this a couple weeks ago. It's clear there are franchises you just don't want to be a fan of right now. The Saints, the Browns, the Titans, like, these are teams that are flailing. They don't know what they're doing. They don't have the personnel in their executive suites to be making the decisions to help put them in a position to be successful 5 years down the road. Howie Roseman, I feel like he is sitting in his office in Philadelphia. He's looking at his board and feeling so good about the position he has put his team in. Because, yeah, they've lost CJ Gardner-Johnson. They are losing Milton Williams. But he has loaded his defensive line. He has loaded his defensive backfield. He's got Cooper DeJean, right? He's got Quinyon Mitchell. Like, he has made such good moves, and he's probably looking at this thinking, I know how to draft. I know what I'm looking for in a player. I will be able to backfill these roles as people price themselves out and get their big mega deals elsewhere, and we will be totally fine. I feel like the Eagles are flying high.
Yeah, he didn't hesitate either, which I give tons of credit to Howie, where he paid the guys where other teams like the Bengals, I mean, talk about disaster, right? Like, they couldn't get the deal done last year with Chase. Now it's going to be another extra 20, 30 million on top of whatever he was asking last year. T. Higgins, I don't even think whatever they throw at him, I think he's going to walk regardless. He fucking hates the Bengals. Like, the fact they tagged him again, and someone put up a great stat of Joe Burrow and Hurts got a contract in the same offseason. The Eagles have spent like $300 million since then on players to re-sign to their team. The Bengals have spent like 20, 30 million. So it just shows you how stupid these franchises can be, where, you just need to make the money work. But I'm with you in the sense that, obviously Howie's nailing this offseason, but, we talk all the time. There's moves that teams make that are terrible. Like we had a couple signings last year of guys that we're paying $20 million to that never touched the field for us. And that's just how it is, right? You're not always going to nail.
You don't win them all.
Exactly. And I think
it's not 100%. It's probabilistic.
Well, and people get too obsessed with the misses, where it's like on your team, success is making the playoffs. I know people don't want to hear that, but it really is. I know it's like, why want more, right? If you're a fan of the Bills and Josh Allen, you're like, take the MVP. I could give two shits about winning the MVP. I won a Super Bowl. Like, I get that perspective, but take a deep breath. You could be the fucking Jets. So that's what I always try to tell people, where it's like, yeah, you want to win the Super Bowl with the Bills? Of course. Do you want to be nothing irrelevant for 30, 40 years? Like, you want people still talking about Joe fucking Namath? No. Like, that's literally living in hell. So that's why I always try to have perspective of this, where it's like, this Bills team, they had a couple moves this offseason that you're like, I don't know what they're doing. Then they come in, they sign that contract with Josh Allen. You're like, that's why they're a great organization, right? They got Josh Allen to take a great deal, left some money on the table to go get other guys. And it's like, that's what great teams do. They don't give Dak Prescott $65 million at the last minute to come play for them. So it's like, you really are seeing which teams are going to keep going up and which teams just feel like they're going to keep going down. And that's the most interesting part of the offseason. You kind of see the writing on the wall at this point.
Simon, before NFL free agency officially kicks off, fans are treated to an even more exciting period, the legal tampering period. This thrilling two-day extravaganza lets teams and agents discuss free agents and agree to terms before deals can legally be signed. And all of that hoopla reminds me of what we do right here during every episode on behalf of our beloved sponsor, Tommy John. We can't make you change your life for the better, but we can speak directly to you through your phone, through your devices, and offer you the assurances of best-in-class underwear and casual essentials that only Tommy John can provide. These ad reads are our legal tampering period. Be your own best representative. Be your own super agent. Agree to terms with Tommy John and relish in the metaphorical signing bonus of unlimited breathable comfort. Simon, why will you be wearing Tommy John in 2025?
Because comfort is king.
Right now, you can shop TommyJohn.com/favorites and get 25% off your first order. Save 25% at TommyJohn.com/favorites. That's TommyJohn.com/favorites. I'm just going to say, I feel like that was a stretch in terms of the metaphor that Matt Mitchell usually likes to go for. Loved it. Super creative. A little bit, wasn't as easy. Wasn't as easy on the read. I'm just going to say that. All right. You brought up something really interesting, Simon.
Yeah.
What are you laughing at?
Just, I love Matt Mitchell and his comments. He just wrote, feedback is a gift. He's the best.
That's right. Wow. Oh, that's right. Yeah, I didn't see that. So, Raybon, I want your take on this. Simon just said there are teams that the goal is to make the playoffs, and that there are teams that are perennially pathetic, like the Jets, and teams like the Bills, who your goal is to win a title. At what point does your feeling as a fan that making the playoffs is the right thing start to wear thin, i.e., a lot of blowback on the Steelers right now? Is it enough to just consistently be good and make the playoffs? They want more, or are the expectations too high? When is it time to blow it up? And are the Steelers there?
I really think no. So I think the thing that people don't get, and it's frustrating as a fan when your team is kind of stuck in that, quote unquote purgatory, but it's really like the upper class purgatory. If you're making the playoffs every year or finishing with a 500 or better record, I think with the Steelers, it's just really come down to they haven't had the quarterback, and you could win it because of other guys, but not without a quarterback. Like the Eagles got through a lot of the year. Jalen Hurts, sometimes he didn't have to do much. A lot of the time he didn't have to do much, but when it counted, Jalen Hurts was elite. And that's the Eagles. That speaks to Howie Roseman. The Steelers just haven't really had that. They got one with Big Ben. They were in a couple there, and then it just got a lot worse. So the thing about a high floor is, if you want a high ceiling, if you're locking in a high floor, then your ceiling's going to be higher because it's correlated. Like at the end of the day, I would much rather be the Steelers and just be like a quarterback away every year than kind of have no, do like be the Giants, who I think ownership has just meddled ever since the end of it got really bad at the end of Eli Manning's career after he had won those couple, and then around that benching, the time they benched him for Geno, like everything just unraveled there, and you could see it. The Jets have been the same way these last couple of decades. They keep throwing the same thing at the wall in different ways, and just doesn't stick. So I don't think the Steelers. I think the Steelers are a model organization, but unfortunately, this is why Josh Allen got $330 million, and we're over here saying he left money on the table, right? Because that's how much quarterbacks do matter for certain teams, and that's how much they do matter in general. But for a team like the Steelers, that it meant everything, because that's the difference. They're trotting out Kenny Pickett, Justin Fields, the ghost of Russell Wilson, Mason Rudolph. Like that's why the Steelers aren't going.
Duck Hodges.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So that's really what it is. But yeah, there's teams like we saw with the Giants. Joe Shane has no idea what he makes some moves that turn out good, but when he starts going through his thought processes, and I'm sure this has a lot to do with ownership too, and there's things we're not seeing, but it's just a lot of these moves just don't quite make sense to me, and then a lot of them are just kind of fixing other things, and I even like now you signed Paulson Adebo, but like what if you don't I would want to put myself in position to where if I didn't get a quarterback, like I could just take Hunter, and I don't know if you still do that now. So I just think there's a lot going on with ownership, and that's why the Giants and the Jets, we heard Madden ratings and things like that. Those two teams in particular, that's why you keep seeing them just struggle for the better part of a couple of decades now.
Josh Allen got $250 million guaranteed.
Mm-hmm.
Guaranteed. And by the way, when he can go for a new contract, he's going to be 32 years old. He could make $500 million in real money over the next 8 years, guaranteed. Imagine that. Just from football, he could end up with $500 million.
And just from my perspective of like we're talking about the quarterbacks here, is that's the beautiful thing about football is you don't need Josh Allen. Usually Josh Allen doesn't get you shit in football, right? Like we've seen it time and time again, these great quarterbacks, it's not their fault, right? Because it is a team sport, but there's so much that goes into it. And that fact that, right now in the NFL, we're in a weird spot, Chad, where we've had a run of dynasties, right? We've had the Chiefs and the Patriots dynasty. So right now, if you want to count Russell Wilson as a starter in the league, we have 4 quarterbacks that are starters that have won Super Bowls in football right now, right? Stafford, Mahomes, Hurts, and Russell Wilson. That's really unique. Like there's 32 teams. There's only 4 starters.
That is an insane stat.
Yeah. And like that kind of things, because I want to bring people in perspective of it's so tough to get there and actually do it. Like you need so much fucking luck. Think about the shape of a football. It's the weirdest shaped ball in all major sports. You don't know which way that fucking thing's going to bounce. Like, even hanging around Eagles fans, how cocky they are, talking about all the fumbles we got in the playoffs and how that helped us get to the Super Bowl. It's like they don't know where that ball is going to bounce when you punch that shit out. Like it's all this random things that add up to them getting to the Super Bowl and winning it. And obviously, that was a crazy run of. They had the most points ever in that Super Bowl history era of points in the playoffs, right? That was a very unique team. But at the core of football, this is why I never get all these different teams and the moves they make. We've had years of Jimmy Garoppolo making it to a fucking Super Bowl. Brock Purdy made it to a Super Bowl. Like you can make it there with below average quarterbacks that are surrounded by really good talent on their teams. And I think, the greatest team and player ever in my mind of this example are those Eli Manning Giant teams, right? He never made the playoffs and did anything. But when he did make it, he won fucking Super Bowls. And that was kind of thing where that team drafted right on their D line. They had Spags as a D coordinator, and then they had Elon, who had that clutch gene with Plaxico. And they had a good run game. All those things add into it. But it's like too many of these teams want to be perfect, right? They want to make the perfect team, get a top 5 quarterback, and make it all work. You don't need all that in football. Like there's so much that goes into it. So that's why I think we're in a weird spot right now where these teams are, they're chasing different teams, trying to copy how they built their teams out. I told you last year, I had heard from people in the Eagle organization that they were going to copy the 49ers. That when they saw what Christian McCaffrey did to that offense, Howie, who has never paid a running back in his whole life, said, I don't fucking care. The NFL has changed. Two high safeties is a real thing. I'm going out there. I'm getting what I think is the best running back in football. You heard, I mean, I'm sure you've seen all the conferences, him talking to Saquon. It's like, he literally said to the dude, you're the reason we just won the Super Bowl. Like, you were the difference that we needed that we didn't have 2 years ago. And teams out there that wanted to do it this year, there was no running back out there to do that. Now, we have this draft coming up where Gentry and there's a couple guys out there that I think are game changers. But you definitely saw this year in the free agency class that teams weren't going to be like, okay, there's a Saquon, there's Derrick Henry out there, because there isn't. You've seen a pullback, and like we talked about, they've attacked the offensive line, the defensive lines, because to me, this draft class has really good running backs. So it's going to be interesting in this draft coming up. Does Gentry go in the top 10? Do teams reach for him because they think they're a piece away? Your Bears team, Chad, I wouldn't hate them taking him. Like, there's certain teams I feel like could add him, and they're going to be in the same position as what we've seen this Eagles team. Detroit, I mean, look what they've done getting running backs, right? That's kind of changed the whole organization. So I do think that we're in this weird time where people are like so obsessed with quarterbacks. Like, we all are. It's fun, make a top 5, top 10 list. When it really does matter, all these other pieces have been so important. I would love your Chris's view on that if he's got a view on these running back classes coming out.
Well, yeah, that's the first thing I was going to bring up was, Genty is the favorite now to go to the Chicago Bears, which, because they addressed their offensive line, everyone thought they were going to take offensive line. Now they have some options. So totally agree. I think, like I said, at the end of the day with the Bears, it's going to come down to Caleb Williams. That's the guy who has shown it, and we know he has the talent, but he hasn't proven it yet. They're like, ask Jacksonville, how they're doing with that. So, like, that's the Bears have everything around them, I think. But the one I was going to bring up, since we were talking about Josh Allen and just how important these running backs are in the playoffs, what did the Bills lean on? It wasn't Josh Allen throwing the football. It was James Cook, who turned into an absolute monster. And every week it seemed like James Cook was undervalued, even in the touchdown market, which is a notoriously inflated market. He was undervalued, and it's because they saw something in James Cook. He got a lot more physical. He had the speed. He can catch it and run, and that's a big thing. Those 3 down backs are coming back into vogue a little bit. I know, and then the Bills also had Ty Johnson coming out of nowhere, playing really well. Made that crazy catch in the against the Broncos in the playoffs. So I think running backs are. It kind of got to that low point in the market where I think they had like a conference or a meeting with all of them at one point and try to figure out how they can increase their value. Well, I think they have. So the fact that we're talking about Ashton Genty, as good as he's been, usually those kind of running backs, it's like, all right, they're great in college, and then everyone's still talking about, pick 20, pick 30, second round. Nah, Genty is like, they're talking about him going 5th, 6th even. So I think the Eagles kind of paved the way with one of probably the best GM in the game, giving Saquon Barkley a massive deal, and it worked out. And then the Bills, we saw them lean on James Cook even when they had Josh Allen. And every week we're like, where's Cooper? Where's where's Dalton Kincaid? Where's all these guys? James Cook and Ty Johnson. So and the Ravens, Lamar Jackson, Derrick Henry. So
Raybon, who do you think is, and Simon, I want you to answer this too. The Washington Commanders last year, they blew up the league. Jaden Daniels was brilliant. Obviously, you mentioned we started the show talking about Laramie Tunsil going to the Commanders. But what was interesting about the Commanders, obviously, was Jaden Daniels' performance, but their willingness to lean into the analytics in high leverage situations, especially on 4th downs, especially on 4th and 3, 4, 5, in that range, way outside of the red zone, doing it consistently. Explosive plays coming from Jaden Daniels. It's funny, we talk about the NFL, you watch these games, and like every single week, whether it's Raybon, Kerner, me, Simon, Stuckey, we're talking about these games as if they will play out according to sort of methodical pacing, what we expect to be normalized play calling, what we expect to be perfect play and teams to play in the manner in which the overall stats say they're going to play, it always comes down to the explosive play. It comes down to the fourth down call. It comes down to the deep out. It comes down to the blown coverage, whatever it is. That's why betting is exciting, because all of a sudden you're like, oh, I was only one play away, or oh, I got this play, right? Those are the difference makers when you're talking about betting. Who will be the Commanders of this season, the team that leans into the high leverage situations?
I got an answer. I think
Give it to me. It's a fucking podcast. Give me your answer.
It's not just that. It's, I think they have the talent to. And think about it like this. Who's been the best team against the spread over the past few years? It's been the Detroit Lions, right? They've just been cover machines. The team that I think last year I was saying they were kind of a poor man's Lions, but they have the talent to be just as good. Tampa Bay. Baker Mayfield.
Interesting.
Played out of his mind at times.
Dude, that was not even
Bucky Irving could be the next Saquon or somebody like that. They got an offensive line. They got a secondary. They took some stabs at pass rush with Reddick, and they got a defensive coach, so you don't worry too much about the defense. Defense has pieces. I mean, what's stopping the Bucs from being like the Mayfield Bucs from being the Goff Lions, who everyone thought was going to be in the Super Bowl over the Eagles last year? That's the team that I think is just severely overlooked.
Simon, what do you think of that?
I love it. People are going to hate this because this feels like a way too heavy Bears podcast, but I have to go with the Bears. Like, this is a team that all I do is, my favorite thing to bet is on second-year players, right? And especially quarterbacks making that second-year jump. And we've seen it time and time again where it's like guys have all the tools in the world. They have a bad season. People leave them for dead. And then they second year, someone like Caleb Williams should take that next step. The guy has all the talent in the world. Now he has some good coaching, an offensive line, a system I think he's going to really thrive in. And again, I hope they get Gentry. Like, to me, that would be an insane weapon to add to that team, have with Caleb Williams for the next 5 to 10 years in that backfield. And, this is a team that me and Chad talked at nauseam about it last year. They were 4-2 when they lost that Hail Mary game against the Commanders. Like, this was a team that was on a trajectory. And we said after they lost, I said, this is a young team. We're going to find out a lot about the Chicago team. They're either going to thrive and, bounce back from this, or they will collapse under their own weight the rest of the season. And that's what they did. But they ended the season on such a high mark. Like that, I know it sounds stupid. That was a huge win for Green Bay, against Green Bay, and for Caleb Williams, in my mind, going into the offseason, because I think he felt what it could be like to be a team that, that should be beating Green Bay at Green Bay, that can have these big wins. So this is a team that I love their offseason. They're going to have a last place schedule, and I feel like it lines up right for them that, just like last year, everyone's going to be talking about Detroit. Everyone's going to be talking about Green Bay. And last year, we had a lot of people that were coming in on this Bears team for the excitement. It doesn't feel like that as we are here in March, right? There are professionals like me who like the Bears, but I'm saying the general public, I don't turn on ESPN or FS1 all day, and all they're talking about is the Bears, like they were at this point last year heading into the draft. So that's a team that I am excited to buy low on. I'm going to bet their win total over. I love how it all lines up for the year 2 bump for Caleb Williams and bringing in such a great offensive mind in Johnson. So it's like, I can't help myself. Like, this is a team I always kind of love secretly, just because, me and Chad just always kind of love the Bears team. Obviously, for Chad has his reasons, but we admitted to it. We had a huge whiff on them 2 years ago with Justin Fields. This feels totally different than Justin Fields year 2, where we fell in love with Justin Fields' athleticism in year 1. Me and Chad bet on that upside, and we were betting them 100-1 to win the Super Bowl, people. Like, that's where we were at them 2 years ago. I'm in the same spot now. It's like, I feel like they're better, they're improved. Am I betting the Super Bowl futures? Fuck no. I think it's like 40-1 now in most books. Yeah. That there's no value there at this point. But for them to shock this division and pull it off, I think it's a real thing. Like, this is going to be a legit good team that I don't think enough people are looking into right now, because they were 5-12 last year. I get it. It's just, to me, these are the teams I love that bet on the new coach, year 2 quarterback, whole new offensive line. Like, it's It's all lined up there, Chad, for this team to take a huge year two step up in this Bears team. So that's definitely a team, just like what Chris talked about, teams we try to eye for that no one's really talking about. Tampa's the same boat. No one's talking about, even though they won the division last year. I feel like it's the same thing for the Bears this coming year. No one's talking about them enough where I think they're going to take a major step that people aren't aware of.
Well, look, I'm glad you said it. I didn't want to be the one who said when I thought of this question and I put it in the script, my answer to this was going to be the Bears because of Ben Johnson, right?
Yeah.
Like he clearly, when he was with the Lions as the play caller, was comfortable in these situations that go lean into the analytics and what the probabilistic thinking and what the percentages is, not on what the conventional wisdom is that looks like the safer play that is going to make you comfortable if you miss it. So I like that to me was the answer. I kind of like Raybon, but it also felt a little cliche because,
Yeah.
of course, like Ben Johnson, he's the guy. I like Raybon's answer too. Matt Mitchell, we got to make a note. I feel like we have to do a future episode that is focused a lot on the breaking down of this question and then combining it with will there be too much examination of rules changes and how it made coaches think about fourth down and kicking long field goals versus going forward in their half of the field from the impact of the kickoff changes? I want to unpack that. There's more meat on the bone. Teasing a future episode. We'll get Raybon back. Kerner, Stuckey, Nick Giffen, Simon, little round table. Just making a note. People are going to be excited about that. Give Matt Mitchell your feedback. As a reminder, the Favorites podcast is presented by Bet365. And now new Bet365 customers get $150 in bonus bets when you bet $5. Sign up using promo code Favorites, deposit $10, place a bet for $5 to get $150 in bonus bets. Those bonus bets can be used on spreads, totals, player props, futures, and more. Whatever the moment, it's never ordinary at Bet365. Must be 21 or older and present in Arizona, Colorado, Indiana, Iowa, Louisiana, North Carolina, New Jersey, Ohio, Pennsylvania, Virginia, or 18 and older in Kentucky. Gambling problem, call 1-800-GAMBLER or 1-800-BETS-OFF in Iowa. Terms, conditions, restrictions apply. Simon and I will return with our next episode of The Favorites on the Action Network YouTube page to discuss March Madness with Jim Root of Three Man Weave. Tuesday, 1:30 p.m. Eastern. Download us from Spotify, Apple Pods, wherever you get your pods. Rate, review, subscribe, leave us 5 stars, say whatever you want. Feedback is a gift. Until next time, love you.